The Oromo are an ethnic group inhabiting Ethiopia, northern Kenya, and parts of Somalia. With 30 million members, they constitute the single largest ethnicity in Ethiopia and the wider Horn of Africa, at approximately 34.49% of Ethiopia's population according to the 2007 census. Oromo speak the Oromo language as a mother tongue, which is part of the Cushitic branch of the Afro-Asiatic family. The name was given as Ilm Orma unregistered trademark Orma in the 19th century. The present form is probably an obsolete plural of the same word Orma. Origins: Oromos are the largest Cushitic-speaking group of people living in Northeast Africa. Available information suggests that they have existed as a community in the Horn of Africa for several millennia. Bates contends that the Oromo were a very ancient race, the indigenous stock, perhaps, on which most other peoples in this part of Eastern Africa have been grafted. While further research is needed to precisely comprehend their origins, the Oromo are believed to have originally adhered to a pastoralist nomadic and/or semi-agriculturalist lifestyle. Many historians agree that some Oromo clans have lived in the southern tip of present-day Ethiopia for over a millennium. They suggest that a great trade-influenced Oromo migration brought most Oromos to present-day central and western Ethiopia in the 16th and 17th centuries. Historical maps of the ancient Aksum Abyssinian Empire and Adal Somali empires indicate that Oromo people are newcomers to most of modern-day central Ethiopia. Recent history. Historically, Afaan Oromo-speaking people used their own Gadara system of governance. Oromos also had a number of independent kingdoms, which they shared with the Sidama. Among these were the Jibe region kingdoms of Gira, Goma, Gero, Guma, Jima and Limuan area, as well as the kingdom of Jiran. Historically, both peaceful and violent competition and integration between Oromos and other neighboring ethnicities such as the Amhara, Sidama and the Somali had an impact on politics within the Oromo community. The northern expansion of the Oromos such as the Edu and, in particular the Arsi, to ethnic Somali and Sidama territories mirrored the southern expansion of Amharas, and helped influence contemporary ethnic politics in Ethiopia. Also the Great Somali expansion from the Ogaden Plains west towards the Juba River led to conflicts with the Oromo. In some cases, Oromos and Somalis were in competition for good lands and water resources historically. In addition, Eastern Oromos who were converted to Islam ruled over most of Ethiopia together with Afars and Somalis when Horn of African Muslims who were united and led by Imam Ahmad ibn Ibrahim al-Ghazi conquered a majority of Christian Ethiopian highlands. Historian Richard Pankhurst stated that before the coming of European powers and the creation of centralized Ethiopia, the area presently known as Ethiopia, Eritrea and Somalia constituted a galaxy of states and polities, each moving in its own orbit, but significantly affecting, and affected by, the other entities in the constellation. Each ruler kept a watchful eye on his neighbors but would often exchange gifts and courtesies with them unless actually at war. Dynastic marriages were made whenever practicable, though these only occasionally crossed barriers of religion. Commerce, on the other hand, made little distinction between faith, and trade routes linked traditionalist, Christian and Muslim localities. Ethnic and linguistic communities remained largely distinct, but there was much cross-fertilization of cultures. This was true not only of the Ethiopian highlands and the Red Sea coastlands, but also further south along the Somali-Oromo frontier where later 19th-century travelers reported the existence of bilingual trading communities. In the first decades of the 19th century, 3 Oromo monarchies, Inaya, Goma and Guma, rose to prominence. The collective area was known as Galaland and comprised most of central and southern Ethiopia, including lands now held by other ethnic regions. In the general view of Oromo people's role in Ethiopia, Ras Gobana Dak is a famous Oromo figure who led the development of modern Ethiopia and the political and military incorporation of more territories into Ethiopian borders. Gobana under the authority of Menelik II incorporated several Oromo territories into a centralized Ethiopian state. Some contemporary ethno-nationalist Oromo political groups refer to Gobana in a negative light. Though, before military integration, present-day Ethiopia, Eritrea, and parts of Somalia were previously and extensively linked commercially by local, long-distance and trans-frontier trade routes. These commercial routes connected Bonga, Jimma, Sek, Asandabo, Gojam, Bejmda, Marama, Masur, Sodo, Shoa, Hara, Zeala and Berbera. Some Oromo writers believe that the Oromo Razgobina and the Amhara Menelik II were the first two people in Ethiopia with the concept of national boundary that brought various different ethno-linguistic communities under a politically and militarily centralized rule. The two most important historical figures who signify the introduction of the concepts of national boundary and sovereignty in Ethiopia are Emperor Menelik II and Razgobina Dachi, who used guns manufactured in Europe to bring a large sway of bears under a centralized rule. Ethnically mixed Ethiopians with Oromo background made up a little percentage of Ethiopian generals and leaders. The Wulo Oromo were early Oromo holders of power among the increasingly mixed Ethiopian state. The later north-to-south movement of central power in Ethiopia led to Oromos in Shoa holding power in Ethiopia together with the Shoa and Amhara. In terms of descent, the group that became politically dominant in Shoa Euro, and subsequently in Ethiopia Euro was a mixture of Amhara and Oromo. In terms of language, religion and cultural practices, it was Amhara. Nonetheless, in many cases Oromo became part of the Ethiopian nobility without losing their identity. Both ethnically mixed Oromos and those with full Oromo descent held high leadership positions in Ethiopia. Notably Iyasu V was the designated but uncrowned Emperor of Ethiopia, while Haile Selassie I was the crowned and generally acknowledged Emperor of Ethiopia from 1930 to 1974. Both these Ethiopian emperors are ethnically mixed, with Oromo parents and lineages. Haile Selassie's mother was paternally of Oromo descent and maternally of Gurage heritage, while his father was paternally Oromo and maternally Amhara. He consequently would have been considered Oromo in a patrilineal society, and would have been viewed as Gurage in a matrilineal one. However, in the main, Haile Selassie was regarded as Amhara, his paternal grandmother's royal lineage, through which he was able to ascend to the imperial throne. By the 1880s, Zahle Selassie, king of Shoa allied with Razgobina's Shoa and Oromo militia to expand his kingdom to the south and east, expanding into areas that hadn't been held together since the invasion of Ahmed Gran. Another famous leader of Ethiopia with Oromo descent was Ras Makenen Wold Michael Gudessa, the governor of Hara who served as the top general in the First Italo-Euro-Ethiopian War, playing a key role at the Battle of Adwan. He is the father of Ethiopian Emperor Haile Selassie I. In 1973, Oromo discontent with their position led to the formation of the Oromo Liberation Front, which began political agitation in the Oromo areas. Also in 1973 there was a catastrophic famine in which over 250,000 people died from starvation before the government recognized the disaster and permitted relief measures. The majority who died were Oromos and Amharas from Wulo, Afars and Tigrayans. There were strikes and demonstrations in Addis Ababa in 1974. And in February of that year, Haile Selassie Euro unregistered trademark S government was replaced by the Derg, a military junta led by Mengistu Haile Mariam. But the council was still Amhara-dominated, with only 25 non-Amhara members out of 125. In 1975 the government declared all rural land state-owned, and announced the end of the tenancy system. However, much of the benefit of this reform was counteracted by compulsive collectivization, state farms and forced resettlement programs. In December 2009, a 96-page report titled Human Rights in Ethiopia, Through the Eyes of the Oromo Diaspora, compiled by the Advocates for Human Rights, documented human rights violations against the Oromo in Ethiopia under three successive regimes: the Abyssinian Empire under Haile Selassie, the Marxist Derg and the current Ethiopian government of the Ethiopian Theopli Euro unregistered trademark S Revolutionary Democratic Front, dominated by members of the Tigray Theopli Euro unregistered trademark S Liberation Front, and which was accused to have arrested approximately 20,000 suspected OLF members, to have driven most OLF leadership into exile, and to have effectively neutralized the OLF as a political force in Ethiopia. According to the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, the Oromia Support Group recorded 594 extrajudicial killings of Oromos by Ethiopian government security forces and 43 disappearances in custody between 2005 and August 2008. Demographics. The Oromo people are the largest ethnic grouping in Ethiopia, which is a total of 74 ethnically diverse language groups. About 95% are settled agriculturalists and nomadic pastoralists, practicing archaic farming methods and living at subsistence level. A few live in the urban centers. Oromos today are mainly concentrated in the Oromia region in central Ethiopia, which is the largest region in the country in terms of both population and size. Group members also have a notable presence in northern Kenya. Language. The Oromos speak the Oromo language as a mother tongue. It belongs to the Cushitic branch of the Afro-Asiatic family. According to Ethnologue, there are around 40,467,900 Oromo speakers worldwide. The Oromo language is divided into four main linguistic varieties: Borana Alsiguji Oromo, Eastern Oromo, Orma and West Central Oromo. Modern writing systems used to transcribe Oromo include the Latin script. The Ethiopic script had previously been used by Oromo communities in West Central Ethiopia up until the 1990s. Additionally, the Sapelo script was historically used to write Oromo. It was invented by the Oromo scholar Sheikh Bakri Sapelo during the 1950s. The Arabic script has also traditionally been used in areas with Muslim populations. Subgroups. The Oromo are divided into two major branches that break down into an assortment of clan families. From west to east. The Borana Oromo, also called the Boran, are a pastoralist group living in southern Ethiopia and northern Kenya. The Boran inhabit the former provinces of Shoa, Walaga, Ilabeba, Kafar, Jimma, Sidamo, northern and northeastern Kenya, and some parts of Somalia. Barentu Barantu or Barachma is the other moiety of the Oromo people. The Barentu Oromo inhabit the eastern parts of the Oromia region in the zones of Marab Harafi or West Harafi, Rc Zone, Bale Zone, Debub Marab Shoa Zone or Southwest Shoa, Daidawa region, the Jijiga Zone of the Somali region, Administrative Zone 3 of the Afar region, Oromia Zone of the Amhara region, and are also found in the rare Azebo Wirida in the Tigray region. Society and culture. Gadaya, Oromo society was traditionally structured in accordance with Gadaya, a social stratification system partially based on an 8-year cycle of age sets. However, over the centuries, the age sets grew out of alignment with the actual ages of their members, and sometime in the 19th century, another age set system was instituted. Under Gadaya, every 8 years, the Oromo would hold a popular assembly called the Gumigeo, where laws were established for the following 8 years. A democratically elected leader, the Abagada, presided over the system for an 8-year term. Gadara is no longer in wide practice but remains influential. In a short article, Jeffrey W. Arnett described an Oromo rite of passage in which young men run over the backs of bulls surrounded by the village community. Religion. Wike is the name of God in the traditional Oromo religion, which only about 3% of the population of Oromia follows today, those who do usually living in the Borana zone. In the 2007 Ethiopian census in the 88% Oromo region of Oromia, 47.5% were Muslims, 30.5% Orthodox Christians, 17.7% Protestant Christian, 3.3% traditional. Protestant Christianity is the fastest growing religion inside the Oromo community. In urban areas of Oromia, Orthodox Christianity constitute 51.2% of the population, followed by Islam 29.9% and Protestants 17.5%. But adherence to traditional practices and rituals is still common among many Oromo people regardless of religious background. Calendar. It is believed that the Oromo developed their own calendar around 300 BCE. The Oromo calendar is a lunar-stellar calendrical system, relying on astronomical observations of the moon in conjunction with 7 particular stars or constellations. Borana months are Bito Tessa, Kamsa, Bufa, Wexabajir, Abora Gudda, Abora Dika, Bira, Saikawa, Sadasa, Abraza, Amorji, and Garandhala. Current: most Oromos do not have political unity today due to their historical roles in the Ethiopian state and the region, the spread-out movement of different Oromo clans, and the differing religions inside the Oromo nation. Accordingly, Oromos played major roles in all three main political movements in Ethiopia during the 19th and 20th century. In addition to holding high powers during the centralist government and the monarchy, the rare Oromos in Tigray played a major role in the revolt inside the Tigray regional state, known as Iyan Revolt, challenging Emperor Haile Selassie's rule in the 1940s. Simultaneously, both federalist and secessionist political forces developed inside the Oromo community. Presently, a number of ethnic-based political organizations have been formed to promote the interests of the Oromo. The first was the Mecca and Tulama Self-Help Association, founded in January 1963, but was disbanded by the government after several increasingly tense confrontations in November 1966. Later groups include the Oromo Liberation Front, Oromo Federalist Democratic Movement, the United Liberation Forces of Oromia, the Islamic Front for the Liberation of Oromia, the Oromia Liberation Council, the Oromo National Congress and others. Another group, the Oromo People's Democratic Organization, is one of the four parties that form the ruling Ethiopian People's Revolutionary Democratic Front coalition. However, these Oromo groups do not act in unity. The ONC, for example, was part of the United Ethiopian Democratic Forces coalition that challenged the EPRDF in the Ethiopian general elections of 2005. A number of these groups seek to create an independent Oromo nation, some using armed force. Meanwhile, the ruling OPDO and several opposition political parties in the Ethiopian parliament believe in the unity of the country, which has 80 different ethnicities. But most Oromo opposition parties in Ethiopia condemn the economic and political inequalities in the country. Progress has been very slow, with the Oromia International Bank just recently established in 2008, though Oromo-owned Awash International Bank started early in the 1990s, and with the first private Afaan Oromoo newspaper in Ethiopia, Jimma Times, also known as Yeru, recently established. Though the Jimma Times Yeru newspaper has faced a lot of harassment and persecution from the Ethiopian government since its beginning. Abuse of Oromo media is widespread in Ethiopia and reflective of the general oppression Oromos face in the country. University departments in Ethiopia did not establish curriculum in Afaan Oromo until the late 1990s. Various human rights organizations have publicized the government persecution of Oromos in Ethiopia for decades. In 2008, OFDM opposition party condemned the government's indirect role in the death of hundreds of Oromos in western Ethiopia. Notable Oromo people: Ali Bira, a Euro singer, poet, and nationalist; Dirachu Tulu, a Euro athlete; Germa Wolde Georgis, a Euro former president of Ethiopia; Mulchu Teshome, a Euro president of Ethiopia; Negaso Gitadar, a Euro former president of Ethiopia; Fatra Maroba, Euro first African woman to win the Olympic gold medal in a marathon; Gobana Dak, a Euro. According to Yates, he was from the Oromo community who was an extensive landowner, top-ranking general, and a zealous, loyal follower of his king Menelik II, who later died under mysterious circumstances with considerably less property to his name. Sheikh Bakri Sapalo, a Euro Oromo historian and poet who in the 1960s was the first African to invent an alphabet for an African language. See also, Barentu, Barana people, Oromia, list of Oromo subgroups and clans, references. External links: People of Africa, Oromo, further reading, Tsiga Itifa, Integration and Peace in East Africa, A History of the Oromo Nation. New York, Palgrave Macmillan, 2012. ISBN 978-0-230-11774-7. Mohammed Hussein, The Oromo of Ethiopia, A History 1570 Euro 1860. Trenton, Red Sea Press, 1994. ISBN 0-932415-94-6, Herbert S. Lewis. Agala monarchy, Jimma Abajifa, Ethiopia 1830 Euro 1932. Madison, The University of Wisconsin Press, 1965. RIC Query Euro Ethiopia. INS Resource Information Center. Retrieved October 8, 2005 A.